And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather Show. We've got multiple CMEs to cover, hider flares, and a possible solar impact. Look down there in the lower left, the southeastern limb. Something very interesting just happening just in the past few hours. Right at the end, right all of a sudden, right there. And we'll cover more of that, but first, this massive filament eruption in the northwestern limb. Part of the Lance Armstrong solar filament has blasted off. It is on its way to some other location. And you'll see some brightening around the chromosphere there. Right at the end, right in there. See that brightening? That's called a hider flare. Plasma leaving the magnetic field that was suspending it and crashing back down toward the solar surface. Now, the events going on down here are the really interesting ones. So this is, all of a sudden some stuff happening down there. And wait till you see the possible solar impact that, believe it or not, may be associated with this. So we'll get to it here. And before we show any more imagery, let's switch to the... Here is the SDO continuum for the past 24 hours. And we've had a little uptick in radio flux there, a little bit of growth in that north-central sunspot group. Besides that, mostly stable there for the past 24 hours. Here's colorized magnetogram. December 23rd and 24th to date. So that's what's going on. Here's some possible aurora here, minor auroral imagery there over Iceland. Sky's looking a little green and purple once again there over Hekla. And let's see what else is erupting. It's your Christmas Eve volcano report. Biko is exploding. 17,000 foot ash plume there from Biko, flight level 170. Flight level 060 over Subanose Jima. Ibu, flight level 100 as Ibu explodes as well. 10,000 foot ash plume over Halmahera. Lesser Sunda Islands exploding as well via Luatolo. 6,000 foot ash plume over it. Flight level 060. Flight level 150 over Merapi. Over Sumatra. Popocatépetl exploding. Flight level 190. 19,000 foot ash plume over central Mexico there, just north-northeast of Mexico City. Fuego in Guatemala exploding. 17,000 foot ash plume. Nevado del Ruiz exploding. 21,000 foot ash plume. Sangay exploding. 22,000 foot ash plume. And Sabancaya, the world's largest volcano right now in terms of its ash cloud, producing a 26,000 footer. It's a flight level 260. Moving right along to earthquake activity. There are the past 90 days. And here are the past 24 hours. We'll cite quakes of a 5 and greater magnitude, and quite a bit of quakes here. At least early in the day and late yesterday. Tonga had a 5.6. Vanuatu had a 5.8. Philippines had a 5.3. And by 2:22 this morning, Tonga had a 5.3. Then a lull in the activity. Until less than an hour later, Philippines had a 5.1. Chile, less than an hour later after that, had a 5.9. And then a 5.1 magnitude aftershock, only about 9 minutes later. Then another lull in the activity until Tonga had a 5.4. 14:52 this afternoon was that 5.4 at Tonga. And then Kamchatka had a 5.0. And those are the quakes of a 5 or greater magnitude in the past 24 hours. The 10.7 centimeter radio flux has come up a little bit to 183. 183 is the new radio flux number. And Solon.info needs an update. Space weather enthusiast dashboard here, not forecasting any space weather storms, and I would tend to agree. No solar storms currently on the way. Earth's magnetic moment from space for the past 4 hours, depicted by the Geospace Magnetosphere movie model, the Space Weather Modeling Framework. The past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. The past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from the ground are the next model we're looking at. Geospace Delta B, depicted in nanotesla magnetic flux density. Next, KP index, currently at 1.33. It's a geomagnetically calm situation from the Smasho Space Weather Station. There's the data from ACE. I'm not going to call it out because it's old. Here are the data from Discover, and it's a little bit more up to date there. A little under 5 protons per cubic centimeter for the solar wind density, solar wind velocity, about 460 kilometers per second. And fun fact, folks, never try to sneak up on a dragon in its own lair, because you'll never surprise it, and you'll come to regret this attempt. Anyway, just some words of wisdom there that Smash staff may take heed to. Anyway, there are the GOES magnetometers for the past 3 days, and no big deal there. No space weather storms, no solar storms, no spooky space weather affecting the GOES. Next, top view ecliptic plane field plot as Earth remains in a South Pole sector of the heliosphere. Depicted here in red. Let's move to our line of sight ecliptic plane field plot. How about the line of sight field plot? Showing all the solar fields, photosphere in grayscale, B field in blue, north and south polar fields in green and red. Which brings us to coronal holes. But before we show them from the SDO, here they are from the Gong 2. So, South Pole oriented coronal holes, as you may expect from the South Pole sector of the heliosphere. Here come coronal holes from SDO, but first, some berserk difference imagery. So allow me to vanish. And so some flaring from the southwestern limb as well as the southeastern limb, and at least 3 major CMEs. I think it may be as many as 4. Are they earthly directed? Don't worry. We'll cover it. Fantastic difference imagery there, 193 and 94 angstroms. Anyway, here are coronal holes. And again, those are mostly South Pole oriented. There are some North Pole ones down here at the South Polar region. The rest of these are South Pole. And let's move to sunspots. Sunspots. People count them. People get mad about them. People wish there were fewer. So for all of those people for the past couple of days, Merry Christmas. Sunspot number is now below 150. So I don't know if, does that make you mad, happy, indifferent? Let us know in the comments. Here's our flare probability monitor and scoreboard. And that's the scenario. It's quite a few sunspots. Sunspot number is at about 143. 143 is what I'll say the sunspot number is. I'm cool with that. And here are sunspots from SDO continuum. Again, we did see some growth in this area here. We did see a little uptick in the radio flux and some large flares, mostly around the limbs, which is the place large flares are most likely to happen anyway, statistically speaking. Well, I guess the ones down here in the southwest weren't really limb flares. But this one over here was a big-time limb flare. And anyway, let's move on to energetic particles. We ain't got none. The GOES proton flux doesn't grow anything. It's just, there it is. There are those 3 M-class flares on the X-ray flux. And a quick reminder to not confuse solar flares with coronal mass ejections. These are separate phenomena. And remember, folks, we see solar flares all the time without any coronal mass ejections, and coronal mass ejections regularly without any solar flare. So they're a separate phenomenon. Remember, folks, coronal mass ejections are mostly protons. Solar flares are mostly photons. X-ray frequency photons. So 3 M-class flares, and let's take a look at those in some fresh imagery here. This is 131 angstroms plus the 94 angstroms difference imagery. So it'll show you some fantastic detail there. It's a 60-minute running difference on the 94 angstroms and the raw 131 angstroms imagery from SDO together. Here we've switched them up. Now we've got the 94 angstroms raw imagery and the 131 running difference 60 minutes. And we're going to show you some slow-mos of that situation going on in the southeastern limb, your lower left. But before we do that, here are some regular 30 frame per second images of that series of events. And some quite interesting activity going on down there indeed. We're going to talk more about that a little bit later in the video, because this could be quite an interesting event. We'll get to why in a moment. First, let's take a look at star charts. So we like to show a star chart here before we get to coronal mass ejections and filaments. So here is what's going on overhead. And Santa is still way out to the east, by the way. We're going to show some, of course, NORAD tracks Santa. You don't want to have Santa shot down by a missile, right? That would be unfortunate. But that's what's going on. We've got some gas giants and the moon up there, nearly full in the sky. Here is our solar system forecast for heavenly bodies. This is where things are today. That's where things will be on New Year's Eve in 1 week, as this year draws to a rapid close. Here's our astronomy photo of the day, and I have no idea what it is. It looks like a nebular cloud, like a supernoval remnant. Let's see what it happens to be there. A very bright red star, looking like it's illuminating that. Oh, it's a new white dwarf. I stand corrected. So that is the NGC 2440, the new general catalog, entry number 2440. A white dwarf, extremely illuminating the area around it. From Hubble, from NASA and ESA and Hubble, and let's move on to CMEs. CMEs, they're exciting, and the last one that's still in the process of fully leaving the corona now is one of the more exciting ones we've seen in a long time. Now look at this object right here. So you may be fixated on this comet. You're going to see a comet coming from the lower left. Check this out. This is Berserk. Here comes a comet, but look at this object. This object has no tail, folks. It doesn't look like it's breaking up very much as it moves, but it does look like it has sort of its own trajectory there. Very interesting indeed. And let's take a look at what happens today. It continues speeding in there. And yeah, that is No tail there, folks, as if it's not disintegrating nearly as much as a comet would be. So interesting to say the least. It's an astronomy tidbit. So, yeah, very interesting. And this latest CME, check this out. A very dense CME there popping off from behind the southeastern limb just in the past few hours. So I'm not sure how much of that we got on this particular download here. Let's forward this. Just a very, very dense, massive plasma blasting off there. And we'll look at it from stereo A as well. Let's see what stereo A's got to see there. Exciting day for CMEs. So, very interesting events going on. Not half bad. Huh. Well, the Lance Armstrong filament looks fantastic as it blasts off. But we've got some very old data there. So that data's like... This part's popping off here, but this other stuff is like 6 hours old, so... Let's take a look at our custom coronagraphs. These are 24-hour videos. And again, some quite interesting activity there indeed. Let's zoom in one step. Wow. So I'll just leave that one up to the comments section. You decide what you think is going on there. And I'm not going to conjecture about it. How about that? That's what I'll do. Here's that difference imagery once again. There's 131 plus 94 angstroms in 60-minute running difference. But let's get a little bit closer here. So here's we pause this at a certain specific moment there, and I'm going to just bring this back repeatedly to the same spot. Check this out. How's that for a money shot? That is the 94 angstroms plus 131 angstroms difference imagery. Quite interesting indeed, wouldn't you say? And here is the opposite, the 131 raw imagery plus 94 angstroms difference. So pretty sweet. And a sudden reduction of the iron content there. You can see it gets very dark just after the CME. So the area is cleared of those species of ions. Very interesting indeed. So yeah, that's how you like them apples. That's it's been an interesting day for space weather, wouldn't you say? Anyway, here are the filaments that remain, and there are still a lot. So don't be surprised to see more CMEs. The likelihood of those is just this side of 100% for the next 24 hours. You can see the Lance Armstrong filament blasting off here. And this one right here is the Me filament, by the way. That one right there. That one partially got blasted off as well. So part of those are both still anchored. Part of the Lance Armstrong and part of the Me filament. And then these other ones over here aren't even named yet. So hashtag name that filament. What can I tell you? I'm not going to name it for you every time. x.com/smashomash hashtag name that filament. So here's the aftermath of this most recent event down here, and just absolutely berserk CME popping off. How you like them apples? That is some pretty good timing there. So a very berserk coronal mass ejection going on. And let's show the full disk view before we go to bonus features. Bonus features. Here we are. Starting out with satellite charging hazards. We ain't got them. Goes electron flux here reaching back into more normal levels there, but not cratered as you would see during a geomagnetic storm scenario. Kind of low, a little bit lower. There's the 1-year graph from Solon.info. There's the forecast model from NOAA. And it looks like it'll be pretty spot on there. So there you go. Forecast model. Next, the ionosphere. Here it is. And if you're concerned about Santa spraying chemtrails from his sleigh, make sure you let us know about that in the comments. If you think HAARP may affect Santa, make sure you let us know in the comments. We're always interested in your concerns about Santa Claus and the geoengineering possibilities of Santa's sleigh. So make sure you let us know about that. We always like hearing about Santa's chemtrails and Santa's solar radiation management program and things. So make sure you tell us all about that. Here's the latest image, 2230 universal time for the ionogram, and there's the anomalygram. It depicts anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. Next, the WHAM, because last Christmas we didn't show this, but this year we do, so you don't get pissed. Radio operators and GPS users should consider this special. Next, the total electron content all by itself. It's the free electrons in about this area here. They cause signal refraction. And so, there you go. Those are the places where you might expect to see GPS errors. It's the coupled thermosphere, ionosphere, plasmasphere electrodynamics model. If you're wondering if Santa uses a GPS, of course not. Rudolph knows the route. So that's the thing. We'll close out space weather with the latest. And it's time to move to meteorology, because you may be interested to know if Santa on his sleigh will be able to visit places where the aurora is visible, and of course. So there you go. There's the likely auroral oval. Here's the southern hemisphere. And don't worry, not a lot of kids in Antarctica waiting for gifts. So let's move on to our regularly scheduled meteorology. There are the surface winds of the east. Happy Christmas to those who are already in Christmas. Cheers. There are the jet streams of the east. Jet streams of the central world. Surface winds. Surface winds of the west. Wicked Witch of the... jet streams of the west. there are those. And by the way, press the like button. Otherwise, Santa will only deliver coal and may possibly imprison your soul. Does Santa confiscate souls in the U.S., Smash staff? I can't remember. She says Santa does confiscate souls in the U.S., so make sure you press like. Otherwise, there could be ramifications. You could be like a genie or something. Who wants that? Anyway, here's the weather situation. This will show you whether or not there will be clouds. Perhaps. And by the way, we have a low here currently over like northern Texas. So here's a view of this low, which is kicking up some blizzard warnings. Yes, some blizzard warnings across the U.S., folks. A large area, actually. So there's the clouds and fog scenario, and here's what's going on. The next 3 days of new snow looking like this. South Dakota especially going to get kaplastered with 20 inches in some locations, according to the Euro forecast. There's the GFS model. And still over a foot. So, big snow's coming. Those are the models. Next 3 days, new snow Euro forecast. Next 3 days, new snow GFS forecast. Here is the weather.gov homepage, the National Weather Service. If your location is lit, head to weather.gov and click your location. Those orange areas are blizzard warnings. And here come the forecasts. And we've got shortened forecasts today, actually. So this is actually a 60-hour GFS pressure and precipitation forecast. You can see, like we said yesterday, some ice showing up there. Some significant areas of freezing rain. Please do not drive in the freezing rain. You'll become a pain for people like emergency crews and other drivers. And for yourself. Maybe you have studded tires, but if not, just don't. Next, accumulated positive snow depth change in inches. The same model, essentially, the GFS. This is actually a 54-hour snowfall forecast. And you can see those areas. Expecting the largest snowfall there are parts of South Dakota. Pacific Northwest also getting some snowfall here. Next, temperature anomaly forecast. And the east will be a little bit on the warm side. The west will be a little bit on the cold side. And let's show lightning next. We had some significant lightning here in Texas and in the Gulf. So check that out. Pretty sweet. And here's a real-time lightning map, and we still have some activity going on. Some strikes there in the Gulf continue. By the way, if you enjoy the content, support the channel. Pick up some merch. Would you like it good and fast? Well, guess what? It's going to be expensive. Would you like it fast and cheap? Well, guess what? It's not going to be good. Would you like it good and cheap? Well, guess what? It's going to be slow. So pick two. Every project manager understands this. If you want it good and fast, it's going to be expensive. That's the area that I prefer to occupy. Good and fast and expensive. Formula One drivers will agree. To be in area number 3 where it's fast and cheap and not good is not good. Also, good and cheap and slow, not really that good. When you want to go fast, be fast and good, in which case it's not going to be cheap. Project management facts. Available at our Redbubble shop, along with 37 other designs. Also, you can visit the Hemp Lucid shop if you want to support the channel that way. Help create a sustainable operation with some products from the hemplucid.com station. Enter the promo code SMASHOMASH10 on checkout. On checkout, enter the promo code SMASHOMASH10 and save as many points on your checkout. 10%. The promo code. Link below the video. Support the channel via subscription services if you like. If you'd like to see the videos continue to exist, remain publicly visible and free for all to view, consider becoming a member of the Smash Team at smashomash.com/Smash Team. Today's featured product from the Amazon store is a stand-up desk. I'm using one right now, and I'm standing up. That's how I'm able to do fantastic things like this. See? If I was in a chair, how would I do that? I guess not. So, stand-up desk, highly recommended. Mine's very similar to this. It's not exactly the same, but it is a hand crank, as I prefer to be able to still move my desk up and down in case we return to the Stone Age. If you'd like to contribute to the channel via Ask a Particle Physicist segment, then join us over on the forum at smashomash.com/forum. You can ask a question to a particle physicist, and then maybe next week we won't ask a silly question like, do you think coronal mass ejections cause volcanic eruptions? Smashomash.com is where you can find links to all of that stuff, as well as our social media and all the other things that help help increase the likelihood this channel will continue to exist, remain publicly visible, and free for all to view. So click the links or else. Smashomash.com. There's a link to the forum. There's a link to the merch. There's a link to the Smash Team. You want additional content? Well, you know where to find it. We'll close out with the latest U.S. Doppler radar map, clouds and fog, and water vapor. So that is where things are. A long line of precipitation continuing along the western side of the Mississippi Valley. There is clouds and fog, and here is where Santa is currently located. So, of course, you may want to track Santa. The website is noradsanta.org. noradsanta.org. Currently over Algeria. So there is the sleigh spreading Christmas cheer and materialistic possessions to all of the children who were not evil and had their souls confiscated. He keeps them at his belt buckle, by the way, which is a demonic amulet, almost like the Hellraiser cube. You ever see the movie Hellraiser? Yeah, well, he keeps the souls in his belt buckle until he's able to drop them off in hell. Or something. Last but not least, water vapor. And here's the recap. U.S. Doppler radar. Clouds and fog. Making it more or less likely for you to see Santa Claus flying through the sky. I mean, look, if it's cloudy, you're less likely to see him. He might be in the clouds, he might be above the clouds, and your soul might be riding through the clouds. Unless you press like. Over 4 billion gifts already delivered. Over 4 billion. Yes, with a B. There's the water vapor map, and here's me closing things out, as I've got to get into the bunker where there is no fireplace, as I'm spooked of demonic entities. So, anyway, I'm going back to the bunker again. Gonna go chill down there till Santa drops off my presents.